Hi everyone, I'm Sejal and welcome to this very special YINasana breakdown. Today we'll be shining the spotlight on the elegant yet powerful and very important hip flexor muscle known as the psoas. And I really appreciate you taking a little bit of time to kind of nerd out with me on this because the psoas is super important in our body's overall flexibility and mobility. And when I think of the psoas, it reminds me of this ancient Indian saying. It goes something like this. We need to get really good at listening to the whispers of the body so that we don't have to endure its screams. And Yin Yoga has so many powerful and effective postures to help us to do just that, to really tune into the psoas and help to maintain its health. And for those of you who might be newer to the psoas, I just want to give a little bit of background. It is this very powerful hip flexor muscle. In other words, it helps us to bring our knee in closer to our chest or to flex the thigh at the hip so that we can run, cycle, climb stairs, do all of these important activities. It also helps us to flex the spine. It is a long, deep, powerful muscle, deep seated in the abdomen, and it originates at the vertebra of T12 of the spine and then attaches to the vertebra L1 through 5 of the lumbar spine. It flows down the front of the spine and then deep into the pelvic bowl, where it then joins with the iliacus. And together, this muscle is known as the iliopsoas. Joined together, it then crosses the very important joints of the SI joints and then the hip joints and attaches to the inner upper thigh of the lesser trochanter. So it is one of our core muscles, and because of this prominent position in the body, it's a very important or primary connector really between our torso and our legs. And in addition, it has this important role of stabilizing our pelvis and our spine. And just like any other part of our body, it can get imbalanced. In the case of the psoas, it can become tightened and shortened, which can be from excessive use, like too much contraction, which could be a result of sitting for very long periods of time, or maybe over exercising the body, any kind of exercise that involves the hips and the legs, like cycling, running, weight training, that kind of thing. And it also is said to have a connection to our stress response. And so a tight and shortened psoas can be a result of unrelieved chronic stress. The psoas also can become weakened and overstretched. And there too can be asymmetries between sides that can cause the pelvis to tilt, and that can cause one leg to be shorter than the other. And as you can imagine, all of these imbalances can have a kind of a host of repercussions. So, for example, an imbalance can cause low back pain, hip and pelvis strain, decreased range of motion in the hips, and some serious postural issues. In other words, the loss of the natural lumbar curve of the spine. So, for example, if the psoas is tightened and shortened, it can pull on the front of the hips forward and down and cause kind of an exaggerated anterior tilt of the pelvis. And over time, that can lead to low back strain. The reverse is true. A weakened or overstretched psoas can cause the pelvis to push slightly forward out of alignment, so it's forward to in front of the knees and the chest. Both of these postural issues can compromise the integrity and the health of the spine and can lead to a greater susceptibility of a spinal injury as well as other conditions like degeneration of the intervertebral disc or osteoporosis of the facet joints, all of which can lead to even more or increased lower back pain and pelvic pain and strain. So it's really important that we keep the psoas supple, healthy, and balanced. And so today we're going to explore some key poses to help us do just that. So for our practice today, you'll just need a blanket and a block. And we're going to get started in a posture called constructive rest. So to find that pose, you're just going to place a blanket where your head will be to provide a little cushion there and begin to lay onto your back. Now, as you come onto your back, I just want you to bring the soles of your feet to the floor and Have your feet flat to the floor, about 12, 16 inches in front of your hips. And then walk your feet out towards the edges of your mat. And that way your knees will begin to kind of drop in towards each other and towards your center line. Now this is a place where you can take your block the narrow way and just slide it between the inner kind of upper thigh area to provide a little extra support for your thigh bones. And for now, just let your arms rest down by your sides. And here, I really want you to tune into your lower back and be sure that you're not overarching or flattening the curves of the lower spine. So you want just a natural, slight inward curvature of the low back, which is about, can vary from person to person, but just usually about the height of two fingers kind of stacked on top of each other. Now, by bringing or kind of shortening the distance between the thigh bone and the torso while keeping the spine in a neutral position, we're neither lengthening nor contracting the psoas. So in other words, we're just giving it a break, giving it a chance for the psoas to kind of tune down, to relax, and to just enjoy a much deserved break. Now this is important because it's been said, right, that the psoas has a sensitive to our emotions, to trauma, to anxiety. It's kind of linked to the stress response. So when we can do a posture like this that relaxes and releases the psoas, we help to soothe fight flight and activate our body's rest, renewal, and heal response, right? Helping to bring calm to the central nervous system. So just let your attention dive deep into the hip sockets and feel the weight of the femur bone gently resting there into the sockets, and then the weight of the bones resting down onto the earth. And with your attention deep there, see if you can just feel any tension or tightness begin to release and dissolve. See if you can sense the release of the gripping of the hip flexors. And maybe you feel this as a physical release, or maybe you just feel the breath slowing down, the heartbeat at ease, slow. And in fact, this is a really good posture to do daily. You could do 10 to 15 minutes a day just to help to rebalance, come home, come back to center. And you might want to pair it with some deep breathing as well. So you could place one hand on top of your belly, and if your shoulders allow, you could place the other hand palm up, just kind of underneath your low back. If that feels strained, then you don't have to do that. Just rest your other hand by your side. And let's just focus on some slow, deep breathing here. So as you inhale, you just want to feel the lift of the belly and the low back. Feel both sides pressing into the respective palms. And then as you exhale, feel belly and low back soften towards the center. Again, slowly breathe in. Feel the lift, low belly, back. And now see if you can expand this breath into the sides of the waist, feel them reach outward. And then exhale, all parts fall back to the center. Again, inhale. Feel the expansion of belly, low back, sides of the waist. Fill the palms. And then exhale, feel the softening, the contraction. And just enjoy a couple more breaths like this. Breathing in, feel the expansion. And breathing out, the softening. As you inhale, the diaphragm lowers, and as you exhale, it lifts back up again. And because the psoas has a fascial connection to the diaphragm, when you breathe like this slowly and mindfully, it's like you're offering a gentle massage to the psoas. As you inhale, gently stretching. And as you exhale, letting it release and relax. Now you can let the arms just come down by the sides and slip that block out of your way into the side. Keep your left foot to the mat, but draw your right knee in towards your chest. So you can interlace your fingers around the knee. You only want to bring your knee in close enough that still allows the sacrum to soften towards the floor. So you want to keep the pelvis deeply settling to the floor and level, even as you draw that right knee in towards your chest. Then, keeping that position, you can slowly begin to straighten out your left leg, left heel to the floor. Again, be mindful that you just have a natural curve to the low back rather than rolling up at all the pelvis. If we tip the pelvis and tilt it up, it won't allow the hip flexors to relax. So right knee in towards the chest, shoulders soften, jaw stays soft. And this pose you can do for a minute to a minute and a half. On the right side, you're helping to turn off the psoas, and on the left side, you're helping to kind of lengthen and open the psoas. Can be nice to stay mindful of that deep, full breathing as you move through this series. And then take your left hand to your outer right knee, draw your right knee across your body, and you're just going to roll onto your belly and your chest so that your right knee is out to the right. Your left leg is extended directly behind you. Now, this can be a rather intense posture. It's a posture that we want to take in stages, and just be really mindful that you're not feeling any kind of painful or too strong of sensations here. So the positioning, fairly important to work into the psoas here. We want to have right hip in line with right knee in line with right ankles, and those right toes point out to the right. And the left thigh kind of turns down, so you just have like a slight internal rotation of the left hip, and left toes can just be flat to the mat behind you. I'll be looking over as I'm cueing you, but you just want to keep your neck in a more neutral position. Forehead could be to the palms, for example, or chin to palms. And so this here already is a deep hip opener. We're working deep into the right hip, the inner groin and inner thigh. You might be feeling some sensation through there. Now, to get a little more opening and release through the hip flexors on the left side, if your body allows, you can come up into a back bend. So you lift up the chest, lift up the belly away from the floor, and kind of prop yourself up here onto your forearms. So you're in like a Sphinx variation, and then kind of a half frog variation with the right leg. Now, a couple of things here to really make this posture effective. We want to avoid an exaggerated anterior tilt. We actually want to move towards a posterior tilt in the pelvis. So to help you find that, what you're thinking about is just extending the tailbone and the sit bones towards the back of the mat. And then lifting up through the chest and drawing the belly just slightly in and up. Now, sometimes when we do this, there can be a tendency to kind of push the bottom ribs kind of forward and out. And rather than do that, you want to draw the bottom ribs just slightly in and downward so that they're more or less kind of lined up with the pelvis rather than pushing forward and out. And so the shoulders can soften onto the back. As with any yin posture, you're doing your best to relax the muscles as much as possible, even as you hold this shape through the chest and the lower back. Now you can hold this posture anywhere from a minute to 5 minutes. You just want to be sure that you're not forcing anything, that you're staying within the natural boundaries of your body, and that you're not feeling any painful pinching or stinging or localized sensations through the lower back. If you start to experience that, one thing you can do is take your blanket and slide it underneath the hips. This will lessen the intensity typically in the lower back and can soften things through that area of the lower spine. Now, there's another option here. You can begin to straighten your right leg so that that right leg becomes more or less perpendicular to the torso. And you have room to play with that, lowering the right foot or lifting it up higher than the navel. But just find a place where you're just feeling a mild level of sensation, nothing too strong. And that typically, with that leg straight, will emphasize an opening through the inner thigh area. For those who aren't really feeling any sensation here, then there is the option. I'm going to bend my knee before I go into that posture. I would recommend you do the same if you're going to transition into palms flat to the mat to deepen the intensity. But again, whenever you're back bending and you're wanting to open and release the psoas, it's really important to be mindful of that slight posterior tilt of the pelvis and the drawing of the navel slightly in and up. And that's about our time here. So now you're just going to slowly lower back down onto the belly and go ahead and straighten that right leg out behind you. Take a rest here. Let's feel the effect of the pose. And when you feel ready, we're going to transition to the other side. So you just need to come onto your back and start out with that constructive rest pose. So in other words, feet flat towards the edges of the mat. Your knees will be standing over your ankles. And this time, we're going to go right into the knee to chest posture. So the key here, as you recall, is you want to keep the pelvis settling to the floor. You don't want to flatten the arch or over arch the lower back. Okay, so you bring the left knee in towards the chest. Maintain that connection, sacrum settling to the floor, and then if the spine allows, go ahead and slowly straighten out the right leg. And just so that we have a balanced practice here, just going to hold here for a handful of moments. You can let your attention sink into the hip. Maybe you start on the left side, noticing how the hip feels, how the hip socket feels. You might even let your attention travel from the hip socket up along kind of the front of the spine, the lower spine, where the muscle travels, and then up to just the lowest part of the low back, the thoracic spine, and notice what you feel there. And then you could do that same kind of body scan, starting with the right hip socket. Just take a few more moments to sensitize to these deep inner layers. And then just take your right hand to your outer left knee and bring your left knee across your body. And you're just going to roll all the way gently onto the belly. Okay, so make that slow, steady transition. So this time we want to have the left knee in line with left hip and left knee in line with left ankle. Now you'll recall you can always stay low here to the ground. You could even, if you're going to stay low to the ground, even though you won't be getting the release on the right side hip flexor, you're getting a nice deep hip opener on the left side. And I'll just mention here too a variation where you could thread the needle. Of course, you could do that on the other side, but you slide the left arm across the upper chest underneath the right shoulder and let the left cheek soften to the floor. Or if your neck allows, you could twist the neck and let the right cheek soften to the floor. Sometimes here it's nice just to rest the cheek onto the forearm. Either way. So those low to the ground, thread the needle is a nice shoulder variation that you can add to the pose. Those working more with the opening extension on the right side as the body allows, you can come walk on up to the forearms. And remember, as you're back bending here, is just a kind of a reaching of the tailbone towards the back of the mat and a lifting of the navel towards the spine. Of course, you can straighten the arms and place the palms to the floor if that's what your body needs. In yin, there's no such thing as one shape fits all. So you're just working to a place where you feel what you want to be feeling, where you want to be feeling it. And today we're just holding each of these postures, this posture here for about 3 minutes. So it's very interesting. We are kind of hardwired to contract the psoas when we get stressed. It's kind of like a natural stress response. And so you can think of it like if you nudged a caterpillar with a twig, how it kind of like curls up on itself as though to protect itself. Well, we're like that. So if we live with chronic stress, then we can live with a chronically tight and shortened psoas, and all those difficult effects that it has for our body and our whole system. And that's why a practice like this is so important to integrate, right, to help to keep this psoas balanced, healthy, and supple. And now is about time, so you can slowly lower yourself back down. Take that important pause, stretched out on the mat to feel any effect. And when you're ready, flip over onto your back and find that position of constructive rest one more time. As always in yin, it's important to prioritize resting your tissues for a bit of time after you've stressed them to those long holds, those long passive holds. And so you find your constructive rest, feet to the floor, knees fallen together, a block can settle between the inner thighs. Arms just relax down by your sides or overhead. Your eyes might close. Just feel the weight of the body settling onto the floor. Feel the relaxation of the draw of gravity on the body. And this position, you're just allowing your spine to find its way home. So feel free to stay here as long as it feels right for you. I hope that this practice has been helpful, and may your psoas be happy and free. Thanks so much for joining me today. Namaste.